Now I've got two miniatures in front of me today, which is actually a lie because I have four Star Wars Legion miniatures, a Warcaster Void Gate, a Lizardman for some reason, half a dozen Airghoul Hammerhead frigates, Empire Under Siege, more information in my game, as well as a bunch of terrain for Battletech, which I just dropped on the ground. Also sell these on my Etsy store, and a robot. But the reality is we're only interested in these two miniatures today. So of the two miniatures here, one is an official Star Wars Legion miniature. It's the sniper guy from the Rebel Commandos pack. I believe he is a Mon Calamari, which I'm pretty sure I'm right on that one. And then I also have this other miniature here, which this one is from Darkfire Designs. It's a 3D printed one where you purchase the STL files from that creator and you can print them out yourself on resin printers. What I wanted to do is kind of look at the differences between the official Star Wars Legion miniatures and some of these unlicensed third-party ones and get a feel of how they compare and also how they paint up, in terms of painting one versus the other, and see how things go. Now at first glance, I can tell you that the nice 3D render of this miniature that you can find over on Darkfire Designs Gumroad page looks a lot better than the miniature I got in my hand. However, it's not really fair to try to compare what I see there to what I've got here. Primarily because when you've got a 3D printed miniature, obviously the whole print process, including the printer, the type of resin used, how well supports were applied, all that fun stuff, does affect the overall end quality of the miniature. So it's not surprising that what I've got here doesn't look quite as nice as the 3D render because, well, 3D renders tend to look a little better. You can cheat with some of these shading effects. Visual effects artists and those kind of things. So I can tell you with the actual 3D printed miniature that I've got here, I got this one for participating, well, not participating, but helping out with a Star Wars Legion tournament, kind of as a little thank you gift. This guy was printed with, I believe, the Elgu water washable resin on one of those lower end 3D printers, whether it was an Elgu or the other guy, Creality. Do they make one? I don't know who makes them. It's one of those kind of $300-ish 3D printers. Now in this one specific case, when I'm comparing the official Star Wars Legion miniature to the 3D printed one I have, the official one does look a little bit better. The details are a little bit more crisp and more noticeable, and some of the details that appear on the official one that are supposed to be on the 3D printed one are not really visible there. Now, once again, this is not necessarily a reflection of the designer. This could be more of a reflection of a 3D printing process. I can tell you on the 3D printed miniature, the end of the barrel is not quite all there. There's a little bit missing, and this type of failure does look like an issue with supports. Even looking at things like the scale, where I kind of think this 3D printed miniature is a little bit too big, well, once again, that could very easily be a printing/slicing process because it's very easy to scale miniatures in the slicing program and print them out a little bit too large. So there's not a whole lot you can say about a given STL file based on the final 3D printed miniature, just because, like I said 3 times now, the printing process affects the end quality. That being said, I can comment a bit on the pose, which is a little odd. I'm not entirely sure what the character is doing at the moment, whether they're kind of sticking a landing from a jump or holding a rifle out. I'm pretty sure no one really runs like this. That's an awful high kick for a run. Maybe I got the miniature in the wrong pose. I'm not entirely sure. But what I'm going to do now is sit down and paint up this guy along with the actual Mon Calamari. I'm not entirely sure what species it is, by the way. It kind of looks Mon Calamari, but not exactly, so I don't really know what's going on here, but I'm going to paint them up kind of like it anyway. And we'll see how they look when they're painted. Of course, once again, yeah, I've given that disclaimer 4 times now. We'll see how it looks. We'll take a look at the painting process and just see how things go for 3D printed miniatures. Now that I've got some primer on the 3D printed miniature, some of the finer detail I couldn't see before with just the base resin has come out. Will it survive the painting process? That's a different question. As for the painting process I'm using here, I'm roughly following along with a tutorial I did a little while ago about speed painting desert camouflage for the Rebel Alliance. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And that, my friends, is good enough for this process. I slapped some paint on these guys, and that's all I'm really going for. I'm not trying to go for an amazing paint job today. I really don't do that a whole lot anymore anyway. So which one do I like better? Frankly, they're pretty darn close. I would say probably do like the official one just a tiny bit better. Its details are a little bit more crisp. Where does this all leave us, I guess? Let me think here. Now, about maybe 8 or 9 years ago, I did a presentation at PenguinCon, which was a local sci-fi something or another, convention. And the topic was basically, is 3D printing going to kill tabletop gaming? Well, tabletop miniature gaming anyway, and destroy the profits of all these companies and all that kind of stuff. And at this time, FDM printing was still even kind of in its infancy in terms of home printers. There weren't really a lot of amazing cheaper ones out there. They were kind of a bit janky. Resin printing, at least as we know today, wasn't a thing. I think Forms Lab was probably a thing, but not many people had those. Shapeways was there if you wanted to get some nice miniatures, but that's pretty much all that was available at the time for creating these types of things. Of course, the landscape has changed a lot with cheap, relatively decent quality resin printers. So, let's ask that question again. Will unlicensed resin printed miniatures destroy the industry? And frankly, at this point, no, not yet. Maybe, you never really know. But for some people, they definitely really like these miniatures. It's frankly a pretty good miniature. There's nothing really wrong with it. The quality is very similar to the real ones, and if you want a little bit of extra variety in your army, it could be kind of a cool thing to do. I mean, there's nothing, it's not up to my job to police Disney's intellectual property. I don't really care what they do with it. They don't care so much, and that's perfectly fine. They can do what they want. But then again, I think at the end of the day, though, resin printing is messy, it's disgusting, and it's pretty darn obnoxious. I don't use my Prusa SL1 very much because it's obnoxious, disgusting, and messy. So there's definitely going to be a contingent of players that love their 3D printers, love making these miniatures, and will make them and use them in lieu of official miniatures. Because once you've got that 3D printing process down, especially if you've got properly supported miniatures from somebody who has your printer in a similar configuration, yes, it is a lot cheaper than the actual gaming miniatures. But I think there's still at this point a whole lot of people who just don't want to deal with that. And there gets to a point where, sure, you're going to say, well, so there's going to be a print shop that's going to print these things for people. And the problem with that is the same problem with 3D printed terrain. There's no money in that. I mean, a lot of people still sell 3D printed terrain on Etsy. I sell some of it, but there's not much money there. Sorry, there's not much terrain there. There's actually a lot of terrain. There just isn't a lot of money, and there's more competition because people don't really care about making a lot of money. So it kind of comes down to a bit of a labor of love if you really want to make a bunch of miniatures for friends, and some people will be awesome. Other people are just going to get sick of it. But yeah, that's about my thoughts at this point right now. 3D printing is here. It's part of the miniature landscape now. I do sell 3D printed miniatures for my own tabletop miniatures game, EmpireUnderSiege.com. So yeah, it's going to be an important process of the hobby, but is it going to kill it? Not yet. Maybe when there's a new technology with no supports, that could happen. But not anytime soon right now. But anyway, that's me rambling because I don't know how to finish this video. So I want to thank you guys all for watching. I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield, as well as Legends of Kalidasia. That's what I keep showing off here. That's for my 3D printed miniatures. And that is my thought at the current time about 3D printing miniatures for tabletop gaming. And if you think it's going to cause any sort of loss in revenue, we'll find out here pretty shortly. Let's see, it's the end of April, so maybe when's GW's financial report come out? Sometime June, July. We'll see if they make any less money this year. I don't think they do. They just still print money, even though a lot of people make knockoff GW stuff. And there's that whole banning of their stuff from stores and whatnot and tournaments and yeah. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I don't think it'll affect them at all, but maybe I'll be wrong. Alright guys, until next time. Crap. Have a great week. Or 2, or 3, or 17. You never know these days.